be here, even virtually, with all of you for this workshop to be presented at Dg.o. The topic for this workshop is precisely the one in the screen, discussing challenges and limitations of an experimental research design to test trust in local e-government. I am Mariana Lameiras from the United Nations University, operating unit on policy-driven electronic governance, based in Guimarães, Portugal, and I'm here with you to mainly try to discuss experiments as a research method in social sciences using an ongoing experimental research design as a starting point. Um, First of all, some introductory notes. Experiments in social sciences are attracting the attention of researchers, but it seems that there's still a problem of legitimacy and validity. We are witnessing a rising number of experiments being undertaken by social scientists, which also comes along with some uncertainty and skepticism. It is also a question of discussing if experiments are realistic and feasible in social sciences, and researchers deal with some questions, several questions like, is this a suitable method to test my hypothesis? How are we going to get participants? How should we deal with validity issues? How will I protect data from participants and respect data privacy? Which ethical concerns should I bear in mind? There are lots of questions that come up when we think about experiments as research method. The design of an experiment is something, in my opinion, really important, especially if, as this is the case, we are dealing with a not so established research method in social sciences. I think, well, it's still something being experimented. I would like to bring some of these issues to the discussion using our own experience at UNEWE.gov as a starting point for this workshop, that is an ongoing experimental research designed to be implemented in two countries, Portugal and South Korea. This experiment, the main objective is actually to test the effect of different communication types in citizens' trust in local governments, particularly using traditional media and social media exposure. This was an idea that we had during a period in which Dg.o was with us at UNEWE.gov as a visiting expert. Jill is from the Incheon National University from the Republic of Korea. And back then were doing research about the presence and the activity of local governments on social media, trying to understand the determinants of the activity of Portuguese municipalities on Facebook. And one of our colleagues during a meeting came up with this idea, a very interesting and challenging idea actually. And since then, we have been working on this experimental research design to be implemented in Portugal and in South Korea. But we will go there in more detail in a few minutes. For now, I would like to stress that we don't have that many examples of experiments in e-government or local e-government fields. And to be honest, it is also questionable if most questions that are of interest for social scientists can actually be addressed through experiments. And this is probably an explanation why we have we are so poor in examples found in this field. But we find some. For example, we find some studies dealing with multi-channel communication for citizens' interaction with governments, considering face-to-face and online usage of services when trying to understand what moves citizens towards the online. We have other examples focusing on eye tracking, for instance, to understand online usage and preferences. But we don't have many examples, as I was saying. Regarding our own example, regarding our experimental research design, as mentioned before, we want to test the effect of different communication types in citizens' trust in local governments, particularly using traditional media and social media exposure. There is extensive literature showing the potential of social media for accessibility, transparency, public scrutiny, participation, and accountability to foster trust in public institutions. We are all aware of that and of its role in scaling up everything. And to reach wider audiences, which can be of particular interest in the political field, namely, for instance, for political campaigning. We are also aware that social media allow for more interaction, but another different question has to do with the veracity of information, meaning that social media does not necessarily disseminate accurate or reliable information and sources. Sometimes we don't know where the information is coming from, and we definitely don't know if social media contributed for the legitimacy of the information that is being disseminated. And this is something that we currently face a lot. We are currently faced with situations like this a lot. The truth is that we see governments and institutions in general investing on social media in an almost compulsory wave or compulsory need for social media presence. Is this transition good for their relationship with citizens? Does this positively affect citizens' perception of what is provided? These are some really important questions that we need to bear in mind when we think about this. But coming back to our experience in this design of an experimental research, what are we exactly planning? We want to expose groups of adults to different treatments in order to identify the effects of exposure to policy content disseminated by traditional media and social media, or in specific in local governments' Facebook accounts, on citizens' trust in local government. We are trying to answer the following research questions that you now see in the slide. Does the type of media used to convey information alter the citizens' perception of the legitimacy of that information? Are there cultural factors that influence what governments consider appropriate information to share? This is what is guiding us. Regarding the definitions of this experiment, or the characteristics or the parameters of the experiment, this experiment will be, if everything goes as planned, implemented in Portugal and South Korea with university students. The idea is to submit them to different treatments so that we can identify the causal effects of being exposed to different types of communication strategies on citizens' trust in local government. That is to say, the exposure is both to traditional media and to Facebook. And in Facebook, a local government Facebook page, and also a politician's Facebook page. We would use different stimuli that would be manufactured by us in the different local government policy types. We elected environment, mobility, and culture. And as I already said before, a set of stimuli would be from traditional media and another set from social media. This example is from traditional media. The idea is to simulate, the real world information conveyed by different means of political communication, by exposing respondents to a combination of traditional and social media platforms. And immediately after each treatment, participants would be asked to reflect on the importance of the policy area for local government and the extent to which they felt satisfied with their local government's actions regarding the policy issue at stake. These questions ensure the control for importance and satisfaction as variables that can impact on trust. But now, stop for a minute, if I may. Does this make sense for you without much thinking? An experiment to test the effects of exposure on citizens' trust in local e government. I would really like to hear from you on this, so please feel free to write to me, to get in touch in any way you think is appropriate. I would really like to discuss this further. And if I may ask you again to stop for another minute, when you hear something like we would use different stimuli that would be manufactured by us in the fields of environment, mobility, and culture. What is the word or the idea that immediately comes to your mind, if any, comes to your mind when you hear something like this? I will tell you what can come from the audience when hearing this without additional context or explanation. Actually, something to do with disrespect with participants, something that is not real, something being fabricated. How do we deal with scientific honesty and transparency if it seems that we are somehow deceiving or misleading participants who should believe in what we are showing and not even suspect that they are taking part in an experiment? That is a very sensitive and delicate question. What do you think? Does this concern make any sense? Is this an ethical question or a methodological feature? Where do you stand regarding this question? Another option that we took was to conceive this experimental research design as a between subjects design instead of within subjects design. What does this mean? Each participant is exposed to only one treatment. That is to say, each participant would be exposed to one of the communication tools that we are using. For example, the participant would go through different newspaper articles with different policy themes. Our option is that researchers would then compare the experimental groups with each other and with the control condition, instead of comparing the subjects before and after the application of the treatment. And this was planned precisely for the sake of internal and external validity. On the one hand, if we do not use pre and post tests with similar questions, we think we do not face the issue of the first test influencing the responses to the second test. So the intention here is to increase internal validity. On the other hand, this also contributes for external validity. It helps to soften the Hawthorne effect, that is the possibility of participants changing their own behavior when they realize they are being observed. And this is a kind also of experimental bias, which occurs when subjects try to be helpful in the experiment and act in ways as to confirm what they believe to be the hypothesis. Notwithstanding, we understand that this is a risky option from our side. If we find true effects on a small scale, we need larger sample sizes to figure out the differences between the groups. So this is why I'm saying that this is a risky option. There are these are the main aspects that I would like to highlight regarding the preparation and the design of an experiment, which is also something new for us. That's why we are being careful or trying to be very careful in preparing everything. Um, but these are the main aspects that I would like to bring to your attention in this workshop. And a parenthesis now, this workshop it was supposed to be more interactive with the participation of more people and live testimonies of people actually implementing experiments and knowing exactly what they are talking about, because they have the experience and they know how things work in the field. But unfortunately, this whole situation transformed our lives, so this is what we have right now, and I hope we can manage to keep in touch and to foster the discussion from here. So, but I was saying these are the main aspects that I would like to highlight in this moment, and I hope they will serve as a starting point for further contacts and further discussion, as there are so many issues that come up and that can be raised under this topic. So, confirming what I was saying, and last but not least, I would like and I am planning to create some sort of online forum where we can share ideas, projects, initiatives that fall under this theme and on cases applied to e-government specifically. But I would really like to hear from you first. Do you think this is something interesting and useful that would be useful for you to take part in? Would you like to take part in such a forum? If so, which modalities or what do you think would be the best solution to have that forum? In which form or format? Let's put it that way. Let me know, please, so that I can plan everything accordingly and try to move on with this discussion around this topic. For now, these are the main issues that I would like to point out during this very short presentation, which was short on purpose so that you could keep your keep your attention and stay tuned to this presentation. And I would like to finish with a few references around this and that were used for this presentation. And finally, my email contact, but I am sure we will be in touch. Let me know if this is something in which you are interested, and we will definitely take it from here. Thank you so much for your attention and for clicking on this workshop for almost 20 minutes. Thank you so much.